Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased to participate in this kind of event. It's my first time, and I'm really enjoying the discussions and looking forward for the future discussions we will have as well. I was asked by Carolus to present shortly how do we implement a very new law of infrastructure. I'm just want to make sure if you can see the slides. Could you please tell me if it's fine?
Yes, we see it.
Good, thank you, because it sometimes don't work. So yeah, I'm chief city engineer of Vilnius, and we've been implementing the very new law of infrastructure development. We've got some practice in Vilnius. We've got a lot of challenges during implementation, well, this law was approved some 1.5 years ago, and was introduced and started working almost 13 months ago. And we started to use it as a tool, well, to have these clear rules and have more things sorted out on our side as well. And we wanted to go for more systematic approach to infrastructure development, so that we know what kind of infrastructure do we need, and how we regulate our relationships with the developers as well. In the future, I hope that it will be one of the tools, of course not the main one, to contribute to different kind of challenges we have in urban development, the urban sprawl or other tendencies we have, and kind of try and build a better city using this tool. So first step we did is when we were revising our master plan of the city, we kind of came up with the priority and non-priority zones in the city, where we want more development or where we don't want to see or encourage development in the city. We obviously know that in our case, in a lot of cases, well, if you have private property, you can develop, but those yellow territories, which are not in the central part, or not in a urbanized area, or in the area which we see as a potential to be urbanized more densely, and there is more infrastructure there. So we kind of had these brown priority territories and yellowish non-priority. Therefore, there's a bit different regulation how we develop those territories as the city, and also how can we make contracts with the developers. Also, the functional zones were also in the part of the master plan, where we see different kinds of use, the land use, and those two things, they correlate, where we want some kind of conversion territories from former industrial territories to now mixed use territories, and so on. So we kind of working with another map, thinking about our territories, and also giving a very small scale for our planning, both for our planning and also for kind of trying to think of how do we use the infrastructure tax we have implemented. We were one of the first cities in Lithuania to start implementing the law, and obviously we have probably perhaps the highest prices for development. Another thing, and another really interesting exercise we did, we tried to count kind of the development potential, so that we know how much more space could be built in different areas of the city according to master plan, to the highest numbers of the master plan, but basically this way we can see how much more development can happen in different areas of the city. Some places are fully developed, which is red or gray. Some which is dark green are not developed much yet, but there is still a lot of potential there. So we can also think about our territories and think about infrastructure that we will need, and think about how much money do we need to collect. So first we put the prices. The priority development is 30 euros per square meter of the built capacity. Non-priority is 50 euros per square meter, so that we kind of try to do the pricing so that it's more convenient to develop in the priority part of the city, and also some smaller tariffs. For instance, for single family houses, it's a smaller tariff which we are thinking of changing now, because we had the situation that other municipalities around Vilnius didn't approve any tariff at the moment, and this way we didn't want to have even more urban sprawl, that it's didn't cost any money to build a house there, and it costed in our case. Now that we have tariffs in all the municipalities, most of the municipalities, so we can now rethink the tariff, which should be higher. Also, the conversion or regeneration of territories, it's the former industrial ones. We want we kind of put smaller tariff for the demolished areas, so that developers pay less and would like to get to these areas. Also, storage facilities is a bit smaller price, and for instance, for parking, surfacing inside the plot, if the rainwater waste is managed inside the plot, kind of the sustainable way, we set the smaller tariffs for that. And the thing is that we see this law also as a tool of regulation, but both for stimulation. For instance, if you want a good city, and that it's important for the livable streets, so that first floor is for the commercial use. So if the first floor is for commercial use, we get a discount, and the developers for that don't pay for that floor. For underground parking as well, if the parking is underground, not on ground parking, it's also free of charge. For playground, sports infrastructure as well, and we see that we can use this law and this new regulation as the possibility. For instance, we have in our plans to build a very new street connecting several districts, but also this street can open a possibility for development. Therefore, we kind of raise the prices around the street, so that we collect money for part of the money for the street, part of the funds for the street, and also when we build that street as a city, we will open possibility for new development. We also started, and still that's a very long way to go, to plan the infrastructure. There's a lot of infrastructure has been planned already in some special planning documents, in master plan, in local plans, but we still have to count how much infrastructure will we need in the very future, in the kind of short term, 5 years, for instance, and set the prices. Also, we are particularly thinking that we want to use the money in a most sustainable and most kind of smart way. So first things first, we would like to use as much of the funds collected when we collect them. During the first year, we collected more than 4 million euros, so that most of the funds we could use for improving the infrastructure. So we set some kind of rules. So we want to invest more into sustainable infrastructure first, like walking, cycling, or public transportation, bus lanes, for instance, and also the social infrastructure, mostly new schools and kindergartens, so that the territories that are being developed, they are more connected and have the needed services there as well. During the implementation, there were quite a lot of challenges and lessons that we faced. So first of all, this law, as I already told, that it's basically only one of the tools to work with the regulation of development. There is way more things we have to do, and yet when we look at the map where we collected quite not that small amounts of the funds, there is still quite a lot of challenges that more money is collected from the non-priority territories. So that's a big issue and a big question for us. What else should we do with that? Also, one of the takeaways was we have to work alongside with the stakeholders, with the developers, with politicians as well, thinking and kind of dealing with this new regulation and how do we what kind of rules do we set up for it to work. Also, that's a funny one, but it was and still is a challenge to count in all the needed infrastructure, because sometimes we cannot know how much development is going to happen. We can only kind of do some prognosis and so on, but how much development is about to happen in certain territories of the city. And that's one of the challenges. And another challenge is to really be kind of precise in counting how much it all will cost us. And on the other hand, one of the saddest part is that the real price of infrastructure is quite high, and we all know that infrastructure is that our tariffs, we see that they are at least 3 or 4 or even 5 times too little as of the needs of the infrastructure in the territory. So we will have to kind of balance this out and not to shock the market and not to raise the prices of the residential and not to stop the development of the city as well. And that's a very very hard to balance. Well, as I told, it didn't really help with the urban sprawl trends because quite a lot of single house building permits were issued in the very non-priority areas, but we see the tendency, even bigger tendency in the municipalities out of Vilnius, where there is way more building permits are also issued, and the more people start to live not in a densely urbanized areas. And we still don't have many infrastructure contracts, but there is a lot of challenges, and I'm not going deep into that, how we manage that, and also day-to-day challenges based on regulation details, which we are working a lot with the ministry to try to solve and have way more discussions that we could have had, but it's really important to do that as well. And as for the future plans, what is the very close future for us is we are now setting the criteria for distribution of the funds, and we want to leave at least third of the funds in the area where it's collected. I showed the map. The areas are quite small scale, so that people who live there they kind of feel the result of what they're paying from their development. Also, but also kind of quite a big number of the funds should go to the integration of the territories, to the city, to the main network of the roads, to the social infrastructure, and so on. Also, the biggest challenge of this year for us is to kind of start to differentiate the tariffs more and probably increase them at least some percentage to reach more like so that the tariffs are more the ones that they should be, and kind of differentiate them, connecting it to the amount of development that is happening in the territory, as well as the needed infrastructure. And well, the smarter regulation is also one of the challenges. How do we kind of really are being precise and kind of do the prognosis for the next several years, so that we don't get the holes in our budget, and also use the funds as smart as possible. So the criteria are ongoing as well. So yeah, that's about it. The very quick presentation of 15 minutes about the law and how it is implemented. But we're really glad that this law actually is now in place, and that we can have a set of rules which are basically for everybody, for every developers in our city, and everybody play by kind of set rules, and we can make the contracts and make the infrastructure development more sustainable and more controlled. So thank you very much.